Hey, what's up? I'm bringing you another episode today of In the Mirror, where it's just me kind of getting in front of myself here and maybe exposing some areas where I could improve, but also maybe helping you along the way. So, trying to be as transparent as possible, using experiences from my life, and hopefully some of that resonates. Today, I've got an interesting topic. It's been kind of bugging me for a little while, and uh, bugging me, as to say, been just kind of tapping me on the shoulder, really. It's a cool topic, but at the same time, it's kind of a head scratcher for those of us who are right in the middle of this season of our life. And so I'm going to call this episode "Next Phase Fatherhood." And I've got three boys and a daughter, and been a dad for 23 years. And then so I've got a 13-year-old, a 15-year-old, 20, almost 21, and 23. And so yeah, almost a 16-year-old as well. And three boys and a girl, different dynamics. Obviously, the youngest being a girl, that's my angel, my princess, the girl that doesn't ever really get harshly disciplined. She's a good kid, but still, it's one of those deals. It's just totally different than boys. And I've learned a lot in, between the 10 years of having my first and then having her. And so we've got an interesting dynamic here. It's a crowded house, loud house, but maybe not as crowded as it used to be. And I want to talk about that today because I've got my two oldest boys are kind of in that next phase of life where one of them is my oldest has graduated. He is now in his career as a teacher and a coach. And my second son is right in the middle of college online, but also working at our church and knows that ministry is his calling long term. So he is really sowing those seeds in his education as well as real life experiences in the job that he's going to be doing long term. And so that said, those two guys are not around a whole lot. The 20-year-old lives here, but kind of doesn't. Like, we don't see him much. Um, Sleeps, eats, and basically is off doing his thing. My oldest, of course, doesn't live here, but in the same town, we see him once or twice a week. So that's a good thing that they're all close still. But I want to talk to you today about that next phase fatherhood. And if you've got boys or girls that are kind of in that next phase, I'm gonna really kind of hone in on the boys, since that's what I'm living right now. But I think it all relates and all applies. They start you are, as they're coming up through young childhood, high school, you are the sole provider of nearly every need they have. You are writing checks, you are the taxi, you are the disciplinarian, you are the accountability structure, you are the calendar for them. Like, everything they need, pretty much, we as parents do. The dad has a role, and the dad is kind of he's the leader of the home, the lead disciplinarian, typically should be, casts the vision, the principles, the values, along with the wife, of course. But I think the dad maybe has, the gavel on some of that, and kind of holds the staff in as relates to disciplining children. Not that we're disciplining with a staff, people, but you get what I'm saying. So we have a different role than the wife. Um, so my role as the dad, and as they're growing up, is always being their coach, always kind of being that voice of encouragement as well, but also keeping them on that path, keeping them within the guardrails of our core values and principles here in this home, and what we do as a family, what we stand for. Um, that's not always fun. It's not always a popularity contest, thank God, because I wouldn't be real popular. But sometimes we have to have the hard conversations and pull the trigger on decisions that are not popular, or we're not maybe as well liked as we would like to be sometimes in those moments. And that's what I want to talk about today, is how does that evolve? How does that process evolve? Becoming the 99.9% providing all the needs, to really stepping back as they get older and they're doing their own thing and they live in their life and they've got their relationship and they've got a job and they're out doing it. And, what does my role become then? Because I'm less needed. But are we? I think the need for us changes, our role changes. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. So, you know, um, they need from us um, to be really kind of the answers to the test. And I say that a lot on my podcast, that kids really, when we're seeking accountability, we're seeking support and someone to help us along the way, that next generation, people downstream from us kind of get the answers to the test because we've already walked that road. And I think that's valuable. I think that's why God gives kids parents, not just to write checks and be a taxi service or a judicial system when we got to make hard decisions and disciplines. But uh, God gives us kids parents because they need to know how that road turns out sometimes. And when we've walked it and we can show them potholes, we can tell them what's around the next corner. Most likely we can give them ideas what to expect, what we've done wrong. We can be that cautionary tale sometimes, and I'm okay with that. Like, here's what I did, don't do this. Had I not done this, I would have done this or been here, but I didn't, so I wasn't. And so it's letting them see a little glimpse of what the future could look like if they travel our, and good and bad. If they go our route when we did well, this is why I did well. This is what you need to do. And you might repeat that and you might be able to have those same successes. So that's what they need from us, is to be the answers to the test. And really, I think we get more on a level playing field relationally with our kids as they get older. By the way, shout out to my sponsors, Summer Moon Coffee and Armored Nation Coffee and Do Work That Matters. Got to toss that in there as I drink some Armored Nation coffee. I want to make sure I mention those folks. And we've got a new sponsor that will be revealed most likely next week. But anyway, so that's what we need to be, as the answers to the test. And I'll tell you how our role changes. I'll give you a couple ways, 3 ways how our role changes. I believe we enter into the friend zone more than we ever have. And it's not a good thing to place the need for being your child's friend over the need for being your child's role model, mentor, leader, disciplinarian, provider. Like, we can be more of a friend to them as they get older and they're doing things on their own as adults, as men. In my case, the men situation with my 2 oldest. And so we enter into the friend zone. And I got to say, I like that. Doesn't mean we're equals. Doesn't mean that, that they can ever take the old man. But I think that they appreciate some of the empathy that I can share having those experiences, and we can talk on a different level. We can have some eye to eye if we need to, some come to Jesus meetings, but that's rare because the more mature they get and the more they implement the things we've already taught them, like, I think we have less of those come to Jesus, get in their face meetings of this is how the cow eats the cabbage. And that's what I like. I like being able to share similar experiences and common interests. And, my son and I were talking about, my 20-year-old and I were talking, he's hit the gym really hard the last couple of years. And I've done that for 20 plus years religiously. And so we can relate to that. We share those things we've learned in the gym, lifting weights, what we're trying to accomplish, nutrition, different things like that. Like that becomes more of a peer-to-peer conversation. And I like that. My oldest, our role changes because they have workplace woes, and the workplace woes as adults, we are no stranger to those. Like, we're very familiar with what goes on in the workplace, the drama, the ups and downs, the challenges, the hard boss, the politics, you know, and so my son's, he's having a few workplace awakenings, if you will, and I'm trying to coach him through. Now they don't always want to hear what we have to say. Let me preface all of this and qualify it to say that just because we may be speaking wisdom and guidance into their life about things we've already experienced that they might or might be experiencing currently, that doesn't mean it's always music to their ears. They don't always take our advice. That's the trap, is as we get into this friend zone and we start becoming more on sort of equal playing fields as far as adults go and what we all experience as adults, that does not necessarily automatically grant us permission, A, to tell them what to do, but B, to expect them to just automatically execute the advice we give. I'm learning that kind of the hard way. I give my advice. I give, situational direction and wisdom on what I think he should do or what I would do in a particular situation. And sometimes I get the eye roll. Sometimes I get the, I can't do that, Dad. Sometimes I get the, that's not possible. And so, I got to take that with a grain of salt, and I got to just kind of, because this isn't 20 years ago. The rules are different. The rules of the game, rules of engagement are different now. Everybody's touchy-feely. It's all about inclusionary politics, and it's all about feelings, and it's all about politically correct and diplomacy. And back in the day, it wasn't always about that. And so I have become my dad. I have become the get off my lawn guy sometimes, and I have become somewhat of a grouch or a cynic when it comes to how to address issues in the workplace, because I believe you just have a conversation with that person and move on, and that doesn't always happen. So, and then the other part here, so the first one was like the friend zone we get into, which I like. Then we get the workplace woes or awakenings that we got to walk them through occasionally, because this is real world. This is real life. This isn't college anymore. This is like paychecks. People get fired. Bosses get angry. Coworkers get catty. So, I mean, this is real world stuff. So we got to get in the workplace with them and mentally kind of devise strategies and give them wisdom on how to kind of advice on how to go through that. But the last one on our roles and how we change is, I believe that we captain the stewardship. You see what I did there? Stewardship. We captain that stewardship component, and we're showing them how to manage their resources properly. What God says about finances, what God says about giving, what God says about, selfishness really, or greed or idolatry when it comes to money or resources and the things that we place importance on. We have to, that's where I feel like I'm more parenting now is, hey, smart areas to save your money or spend your money. I live from experience that we didn't do it right always. But as you get older and you start seeing this bigger picture down the road, this long game of, okay, we need a little cash when we retire. You start double thinking some of your expenditures. So that's what I want to pass on to them, but they don't get that because they're microwave society. They're right now, want it now, information now. I'm spending it now. This is what I want, instant gratification. And we all lived it. But the challenge now is my wife's been very involved with my oldest son, who's buying a house now, and really should be in that house in a couple months. And it's exciting, but it's stressful, and trying to get approval and get our finances in order. And she's the accountant of the family. She's wired to think that way. And she's been a tremendous resource for him, walking him through the house process and the finances and what it's got to look like, bank statements and just different references. But yeah, it turns into almost business partners when you start talking stewardship and managing resources, utilizing resources, deploying resources, how we spend our money, how we manage it, how we invest it, thinking long-term. That's really what I want to get to across to them is think more of a big picture than I did. Look beyond just your, the 2 feet in front of you that looks good now, but what are the ramifications and what is the consequence of that? So that's the 3 roles the 3 ways I see our roles changing: the friend zone, the workplace advice, and then the stewardship. Okay. So let's move forward here. I think, if you haven't already gotten a little bit of benefit from this, from my experiences, like I hope you can take some of this away. And as your kids get older, that next phase, fatherhood, will hit you like a ton of bricks out of the blue. Even when you thought you saw it coming, you didn't. And so if they're young teens right now, I've got two that are 13 and 15, almost 16, driving, almost 14, doing the teenage deal all over again. And so that, it's all coming back to me a little bit, kind of like algebra when you're an adult. I get it. I get exponents and variables. Okay, it's coming back to me. So learning how to parent a teenager is coming back to me. But for this purpose of this talk, if you've got some of those middle teens and they're about to go to college, or you got them in college and they're about to graduate, go to that next phase, that's what this is for you. So 3 ways our kids see us differently as we kind of round out this talk. They start to, so the blinders kind of come off. The rose-colored glasses kind of come off. They start seeing through a different lens, and they respect our sacrifice that we've made as parents. They may not know fully all of them, and it's not our job to really fully disclose 100% transparency through some of our sacrifices. Like we're called to be a buffer in some areas as parents. And you can't argue with that. Like I believe that we are, but we are called, in order to teach and train, to show them a little bit of our hand, show them the cards a little in areas where we think they can learn from. And so, but they start to respect our sacrifice. They know the summers spent on the road at baseball tournaments. They know the financial implications of competitive sports, equipment, lessons, private lessons, travel. So in that regard, in sports, like they see that, like in the middle of that season of life, it's so rugged and so busy that they're just trying to get up, eat breakfast, go do their thing that day, and then go to bed and hope they wake up feeling good the next day. Like when you're in competitive athletics, you're not really thinking long-term. You got blinders on to a lot. As they get older and they get out of sports and they look back on that journey, they see what we did. They see our sacrifice and they respect it. And as they start having kids, they'll even more get it. They will absolutely get in that boat with us and start seeing what we did back in the day for them. There's a ton of sacrifices in, financial as parents. Of course, our needs are really in the back seat, and as they should be, because our kids don't have abilities to sustain their lifestyle, from a monetary standpoint, and that's our job. But when our kids start to see, hey, mom and dad got Christmas money last year from grandparents, and they're spending that on my private volleyball or baseball lessons because this particular month we had some unexpected expenses where normal income couldn't pay for the extras. So, interesting. They're taking out of their Christmas cash and paying for my stuff that's extra, so I can have that edge in sports, so I can have that pair of shoes because my toe is growing out the end and I'm growing like a weed. And so, interesting. That's a sacrifice. So there's countless others, but I think they start to respect that as they get into that phase of life where they're on their own. Understanding relationships would be the next way that I think our kids see us differently. My kids see my wife and I, we have a loving relationship, touchy-feely, very affectionate. And they've also seen areas where maybe there was a day we didn't really talk to each other. So our communication has evolved over the years, ebb and flow. Like I wish it was better sometimes. And I wish I didn't live in the moment so much and just kind of say what I'm thinking in that moment. I've gotten better, but I think we all can grow in areas, but I think our kids see the way we communicate. I think they see our relationship. And then as they get out into the world and have their relationships, my oldest has, engaged practically, and we're starting to talk marriage plans. And, there's a lot of questions now that we get about that journey and that process that we would have never had that conversation, but now it really does apply. And so we are valuable because we know that road. And a lot of this is fairly straightforward and intuitive. I mean, I know it seems pretty common sense that, oh, yeah, my parents did it, so I'm going to ask them how they did it. But that isn't always the case. And then when you get into the granular aspects of relationships and just the functionality, the dynamics, and how each person communicates and responds to each other, love languages, different things, like that's not all surface level, just automatic. It's not automatically intuitive to your kids. So you got to press in and invest in those conversations. You got to actually pursue those. If you want to have those type of conversations and meaningful where they can learn from you, you got to pursue those, and you got to intentionally go after them and open up Pandora's box. You know, risk the fact that it might be an uncomfortable conversation, risk that you might have to be vulnerable, risk that you might have to share areas where you messed up. But that's the point, isn't it? So they don't do the same thing we did in the mistakes that we made. So they start to understand and see our relationship wasn't always gravy and cake and icing and rainbows and roses. When they are in their own relationships, they start to go, wow, this doesn't just automatically happen. This isn't just automatically smooth sailing. Hey, mom and dad, what did y'all do? Oh, okay. So now, now you want to know, because see, now it's important to you because now it's applying in your everyday life. And I love that, because, if you poured the framework and foundation on the front end the right way with them and just kind of planted those seeds, now it's not reinventing the wheel. Now you're just sort of refining that process for them. And you're just sort of like uncovering some of the things you already touched on 5 years ago. And you're starting to go, hey, remember when we talked about this? Remember when you saw mom and dad do this? Oh, yeah. Okay. So now here's how you walk it out in your life. I think that matters. I think that's important. So the last one, the third one, is faith focus. I think they see us differently and see how our faith in God, religiously committing to going to church, to reading our Bible, to praying as a family, they're starting to see, okay, this stuff is important. This stuff is what they've been doing this whole time, where I didn't really realize the need for it. Yes, we did it out of obligation. We checked the box at church, but we didn't really own our faith. It was sort of our parents' faith that we inherited it. And that's common. There's nothing wrong with that. But now at 20 and 23 years old, my two oldest, like I said, my 20-year-old is pursuing that ministry as a life, as a career. My oldest is starting to understand, hey, I got some things that are in my life that are a little sticky right now. I got some stress of a new house. I got stress of a new job. I got stress of a future wife, and just all that goes with real life, adult life. Man, I really need to focus on my prayer life. I need to find some scripture I can hang on to that are my anchor during the time where water get a little turbulent. The waters get a little turbulent sometimes when you start getting face to face with the beast that is real world and real life, real obligations, real responsibilities. So faith focus, they start seeing, okay, yeah, we did this. I saw them do this, but now I get why it applies, why it's important, why it is vital. It's not a religion, it's a lifestyle. It's a relationship with Christ that he opens the door and says, walk in, come to me, get close to me. I'll show you how to handle this. It's not going to be roses all the ways. He never promised a trouble-free life, but he promised peace through the trials, through the tribulations, right? He's overcome the world. We have assurances. We have promises that get us through. They don't prevent hardship. They get us through it. And so our faith focus is what our kids start to see differently, right? They start to see in us what we've always tried to show them, but maybe they didn't always comprehend. But now they're starting to get it. They digest it. They wrap their brain around these biblical principles and the lifestyle of faith that is the first thing that comes on the list of how do I have a good life, an impactful life? How do I bless people? How do I prosper? Right? How do I win? The first on that list is our faith, our commitment to our faith every day, all the time, and putting God first. I mean, he promises if we seek him first, all things will be added to us. So first comes first. And that's important. So, you know what? I'll recap with you real quick. I'll recap our roles and how they change, the three ways that I've identified. So we become more in the friend zone with our kids as they get older. We start to walk with them through some of the workplace woes as they get a job and they start having real responsibilities. We captain the stewardship. Okay. We show them how to invest resources, utilize resources, spend wisely, manage things wisely, and honoring to God. So and then the last part of this, we had three ways that our kids see us differently, right? They respect the sacrifices we made because now they're having to examine those same sacrifices, and that will continue as they get older with the family. They start to understand relationships a little bit because they see what they've learned from us growing up, and then we can help along the way as those things arise within their own relationships, and they start to sort of navigate the waters that we've already kind of navigated. And so we can pour into them that way and shape them a little bit in relationships. And the final one is faith focus. It's not in any particular order, obviously, or faith would be first, but they start to see, oh, it makes sense. All the faith stuff that they did growing up starts to make sense now, and they start implementing that in their life. Hey, I hope that helped. I pray for all of you parents that are in that next phase fatherhood, all you fathers out there that are in that next phase of life of parenting your kids. I pray for you. I know it's going to be challenging, but it's going to be rewarding and refreshing all at the same time. So with that, be blessed.